Tiger fans, welcome back to the official Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club podcast, bringing you all the latest news, updates, and buzz surrounding your mighty JSU Tigers. I am the Corey C. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to be notified of all future episodes. Apple Podcast and Spotify video users, rate and review the show. And everyone, go follow Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club on Facebook and Tiger Talk 1400 on Instagram and Twitter. It all helps the cause, which is the I love Jackson State University. And here we are again, game week, another big home game coming up, and we are welcoming a familiar foe to the vet, none other than the Mississippi Valley Delta Devils. And joining us again, it is definitely an honor. He is a legend in the game. If you follow Mississippi Valley State athletics or sports, you know the voice, none other than Mr. Lee Hall. Welcome back to Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club.
Hey, thank you. And thank you an awful lot for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely an honor for us to have you. And when we do play Valley again, we recognize that voice immediately. So passionate, so knowledgeable of the team. So no one better to come on and talk about this Mississippi Valley State team. Right now, obviously off to an 0-3 start. Most recently, last week, lost to Delta State 28-17. But that Delta State team, I mean, that's a program that's no stranger to the top 25 polls in Division II football. They are always a tough out. Matter of fact, they gave us everything we could handle 1 year ago, and that game came down to the last play, and they actually beat us in the past. And that was a JSU team that went on to win the SWAC championship. So again, it's always going to be a battle. But just talk about that, your most recent game against Delta State.
It was a game, and nothing against Delta State. They have a good program, as you said earlier. But that was a game that many people, including some Delta State fans I talked to just yesterday, thought that Valley State would win it. And the reason that is the case because of the hype and the success in terms of Valley State had last year coming into this year. So it was a good game. First half, not so good for Valley State. Valley State came out in the second half and got the running game going, able to get some points on the board. But at the end of it, just couldn't hold on enough to get a very much needed victory for Valley State after the first two ball games. Tolleson State, Austin P, and then even when you think about the first ball game, you think about the fourth ball game, which is Jackson State. And that is coming to Jackson not in the manner that they want to without any wins. After dropping the first two, they said, well, we got to get Delta State to go to Jackson. And it just didn't happen. So it compounds the, I won't call it a problem, but the interest and the need for Valley State to play well this week, win or lose.
Definitely. I can imagine that was a disappointing loss. And this happened to Valley several times last year, games that they could have won, should have won, but for whatever reason, couldn't quite pull it off, couldn't get over the hump. And I know you guys were expecting it to get over the hump. And obviously, it's still early in the season. Obviously, SWAC play hasn't started, but you weren't picked very high in the SWAC preseason polls. But I'm sure there was a lot of internal optimism heading into the season. So where is that optimism now, now that you started 0-3?
Well, it's not where it was it's supposed to be after the third ball game. But the fact is, your first SWAC ball game, then you're going against. The truth is, nobody's giving Valley State a chance to win this football game. The interest is, though, I'm still hearing some people to say, you spoke of optimism. I have a good friend of mine who went to California, LA, and he said, I'm going to come back. He said, I would not miss this game for nothing in the world. Because it's still Valley State and Jackson State. So the optimism is there. Again, to play well. Because after that, you got to go on the road to Florida. You got to come back to Alcorn. So the optimism is there. It has to be there. But giving Jackson some credit with what Jackson State has been able to do over the past 3 years to get there and hang in there would be some added on optimism for Valley State in the rest of the season. And to be, just being frank with you, I know you have a very serious broadcast. To be frank, Valley is not expected to beat Jackson State. When you talk about their rivalry, when you hear Coach Dancy, who's a graduate of Valley State, he says it's not a rivalry. A graduate of Jackson, he says it's not a rivalry unless you can win some ball games. And over the history, we haven't had very much success against Jackson State. But the optimism, it got to be there. You can't You can't come out against Jackson State with the team they have now and not think that you have a chance, because we've seen what Jackson has done in the first few ball games. If you don't go in up, it could be a bad day, Carl.
That you said you're not expected to win this game. That's a fair statement, a fair assessment. However, when these two teams come together, you can throw the record out of the window, because Valley always gets up to play Jackson State. You guys weren't given a shot last season, but gave us everything that we could handle. And obviously our guys, Coach Prime specifically, he wasn't at the game, but he watched it. Just a new level of respect for the way this team fights, and it really takes on the personality of Coach Dancy. But outside of that spring game where you guys came to Jackson, I think every year Valley has been right there going toe to toe with Jackson State, giving us everything that we can handle. So what is it about Jackson State that gets Valley so pumped up and ready to play?
Well, Jackson is Valley's biggest rivalry. Again, Jackson is Valley's biggest rivalry. For Jackson, it's probably Alcorn. So to get any kind of respect when you're talking about rights and relatives going to both schools, you're talking about recruiting. You got to put, although Jackson again is one, at the end of the day, close ball games, but at the end of the day, Jackson wins most of the ball games. So to be even to compete in the state, first of all, you lost to Delta State, right? And they're right here in the Delta, and they're recruiting the same area, the same guys. A lot of guys that went to, although Valley State and Delta State is close together, a lot of the players that's on the Delta State team is close to Valley State. Now you leave there, you got to play Jackson, and it's about recruiting still. It's about student enrollment still, if you can win. So if you can beat Jackson State, it means an awful lot to you. So you're right. You throw the records out the window. Fortunately, there's been some good ball games, but we've been coming up on the end of them. That is not good at the end of the day. But hopefully Coach Dance can get them up like he did last year. Hopefully to the level that Coach Cummings got them up when they went to Jackson and beat Jackson State. Yeah. So hopefully we can get that kind of optimism going for us.
Right. So talk about that quarterback situation, the all-important quarterback situation. I know that Coach Dancy brought in Jamari Jones from East Mississippi Community College, who was actually the #1 JUCO quarterback in the nation. But he didn't get his first start until this past weekend. He went 17 for 25, 182 yards and a touchdown. And he also added 39 yards on the ground. So what did his insertion into the lineup do for the offense? And do you think he has solidified that starting role going forward?
I think so. Let's go back. Easton started last year for Valley State, started the first 2 ball games this year. When Jones chose Valley State, a lot of conversation about that. At the end through the first 2 ball games, didn't see him. This is what's going on. When he hit the field Saturday, you could hear his name being chanted. So this is the person that they wanted to see. You just called the numbers off. They looked good. So all this Jackson State, the fans are excited. And quarterback is on the offensive side of the ball. But if the offense is moving, then the defense will get fired up as well.
Yeah.
So the whole team and community, fan base, they like the decision that perhaps Jones will be starting this week. We don't know at the game time. I don't know at the game time, but they like that attitude, because that's something they haven't had in the first 3 ball games that they lost. And with the numbers he put up the other day, you say, wow, this is the guy that we've been waiting for. I do a radio program as well. We do a lot of politics and other things, but in their show, they said, wow, I hope he would start that quarterback that came in the ball game. And they were talking about Jones. So, in today's, with the media being as it is, you're on a platform, people can't let you know what they think exactly.
Oh, yeah. They tell you exactly what's on their mind.
Anybody else, but you got to know what's on their mind. And Corey, right now, Jones is on the mind of the fans and probably the players, to be honest with you.
Okay. So the players are getting behind him, rallying behind him?
Well, I haven't talked to any of them, but anytime someone's in the ball game and you can move the ball with them, that's probably who you prefer to be on the field with you.
So let's talk a little bit more about this offense. You guys are led by Caleb Johnson, a familiar name. He wreaked havoc all of last season. He finished with, I think it was a 2nd-team All-SWAC selection, if I'm not mistaken. And then this season, coming into this season, preseason, 1st-team All-SWAC. I'm on record saying I think he's the one of the top 2 running backs that we'll face all season. And after 3 games, though, currently only 166 yards rushing, 37 yards receiving, only 2 touchdowns. So how important is it to that offense for him to get going?
And I think his numbers are not there because if you the first name they call when they talk about your football team, and Caleb Johnson has been the name that's been called. Also, the name was heard loud and clear by Coach Deion Sanders when he came to Valley State, and he said one day this guy here will be in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
He said that, and
Wow.
when he says that, being in the NFL, other everybody listening to what he says, other teams and other players and coaches, they hear that too. So when the defense hits the field, they're looking for Caleb Johnson, and they've been on him. So Valley's been able to go in the half and get some things working with him. Also, Jacoby Thomas, who's running by the second player behind him, he's had some success too. But hopefully, it won't be a slow start for Caleb Johnson this Saturday. Hopefully, it won't be, and he can get his numbers going and get to where he wants to get to in this game and the rest of the season.
Right. So you mentioned the guy coming behind him, and I noticed that Valley has several guys in that backfield who tote the rock. So outside of Caleb, who are the most likely ball carriers to carry the load for you if Caleb can't get it done?
It'll be Thomas, and they have a young man from Greenwood named Fant. He's a small player, but he's extremely fast. If he can find an opening, he can move the ball too. But I think all that is done to really get, as you said, the rock back into Caleb Johnson's hand, because you know what he can do when he's going with it. But those 3 guys, most of the guys, they'll be handling the duties from the backfield. And now Jones also, he can run it.
He can
move.
So
with him, with his wheels, that'll make it much better. And I say much better for the offense.
And at that wide receiver position, Ja'Cory Rankin, he's a big time threat for you. Had 7 big grabs against Delta State, and he can fly as well. You talked about your running back who can move, but this guy can really fly. So talk about his play and who will need to step up if Jackson State decides to place a lot of emphasis on him defensively.
Well, you got him. You have a gentleman out there. I can't call his name right now, but he also can catch the football well as well. Sylvester, I tell you what, we have a couple of tight ends though, and
Okay.
Campbell made some big plays the other day for Valley. So, but we haven't had a lot of guys to catch the ball. Let's go back again to the quarterback spot, and they're saying that because he's not been able to get off like Coach wanted him to, don't really have a lot of standout receivers that you can point to, because we haven't had that many guys to catch the ball downfield outside this past week.
And defensively, you guys are led by Ronnie Thomas. He finished last season as a second-team All-SWAC performer, and going into this season, I think it was a first-team selection on that preseason list. And this season, 23 tackles so far, 8.5 for loss, 5 sacks. So he's getting it done. I think a forced fumble as well, quarterback hurry, pass breakup. So he's filling that stat sheet. I mean, he can flat out play. So talk about him and also some other guys along that defensive line, or just the entire defensive unit that need to make some noise for Valley to turn this season around.
When when you're doing the play-by-play, you get used to the names. Some names are real easy to call. Number 50 is real easy to call because he's running the ball all the time. You have Bell is running the ball all the time. But when it comes to the defense, the other state coach, as others, they'll look at Valley State defense. They say they're big, they're aggressive. So it's going to be something that has to be done by committee. If they're going to slow Jackson State down, it's going to take the whole group to get it done.
So talk about the recruiting that Coach Dancy has done. That's one thing that everybody who follows SWAC football and HBCU football noticed this offseason, just the uptick in recruiting, going after some big name guys. We talked about the quarterback who was, top JUCO quarterback in the country, which is huge, but going after some guys that I would dare to say Mississippi Valley State typically wouldn't go after, or at least they wouldn't land them. But Coach Dancy has that confidence to go in there and not only recruit them, but bring them home. So talk about what he's doing from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, again, if you're out there and these players want to play, they want to play on the field even before the portal became available. And if you saw Valley State last year and the recruiting, I don't go into the homes to recruit, but the recruitment statement got to be, if you were on our team, we could have beat that team. You come to us. You sell them that, they come and play for you. And the thing about it, with what's going on now, it doesn't matter what school you play with. what conference you play in, they're going to see you. And I think that's what Coach Dancy is telling his players. Also, that had a lot of different guys last year. Coaching staff last year has for the most part changed. So he's telling them, if you come in here, regardless of who was here last year, you get an opportunity to play. So I think that's why we hear players coming from so-called the big name schools. I think they're coming to Valley State so they can play and they can be seen when they play against some other teams that are getting all and most of the notoriety. I just think that's what he's telling them to get them to come to Valley State.
Right. And speaking of some of the additions, and especially when you talk about dipping into that transfer portal, when Dancy's in that transfer portal, he's looking at Jackson State or guys who were at Jackson State. So fun fact, 4 former Tigers on the Mississippi Valley State roster: Cedric Moffitt, defensive back, DeMonte Holloman, his friend, his homeboy. They've been playing together since kids at every level, high school, at junior college, at Jackson State, and now at Mississippi Valley. So they're a package deal. But they both can play. We saw them in practice. Didn't get a lot of run at Jackson State, but we knew they had the potential. Also, Jalen Jones, that's the familiar name for our Jackson State fans, the offensive lineman, and then Cameron Hines, a wide receiver. So you guys definitely will grab those Jackson State players to add to that Mississippi Valley State roster. Then, of course, we all know Coach Dancy, former Jackson State player, but also new Mississippi Valley State Director of Athletics, Hakeem McClellan, who was hired back in June, most recently served as Associate AD for Compliance at Jackson State, working alongside Ashley Robinson, the Mississippi Valley State alumnus. So a lot of ties there between the two schools. But McClellan, man, he did a heck of a job at Jackson State. He's definitely missed a great addition, huge addition for you. And of course, he's a Valley State alumnus, and he was a student athlete there. So have you had a chance to speak to him, or at least just kind of hear about his vision for the athletics department at Mississippi Valley State?
We were there in his interview process. It came down to him and Coach Totten. And it was an open interview process. And I'll be honest with you, from the time he stepped on the stage, he began to say out his vision for Mississippi Valley State. And I think at that moment, people began to buy in. And he was very candid with them. He said, for this program to move, he said, you are going to have to go into your pockets to help support and help donate to the program. One big thing that's going on now, and what they're doing, they are rolling out everything positive toward the program. They are rolling it out. The latest has been the equipment truck. You got the big logo on it, and that on it, and it's going up and down the road. We call it a rolling billboard. So he's been able to do things like that. Not only that, he's able to work close with the community. He's going to government, business, you name individuals. He's there. So he's doing an excellent job of selling the program to get it to where he knows it can be. He was at, and he was with Ashley at Valley, with Ashley at Prairie View, with Mr. Robinson at Jackson State. So he's seen a model in the SWAC of how you get it to move. And I think, I haven't talked to him about that, but I think that he's going to use that same model to the best he can. And the question would be, why not? If it's working.
Definitely. All right, Coach Prime, he's been a big advocate for you guys, and it seems like he's built a great relationship with Coach Dancy. He actually visited the campus earlier this year, and he was shocked by some of the lack of resources, and he vowed to help out, do whatever he could, whatever was needed, whatever he could do to help. And I'm seeing some initiatives for fundraising at Valley, and Coach Prime always talks about, again, the respect that he has for Coach Dancy for what he's able to do with what he has to work with. So talk about that, the job that Coach Dancy does, and what the potential of the program would be if he had greater resources.
It's all about, no secret, again, since the name, image, and likeness has come out there, we've heard some things that other schools were already doing, whether they were supposed to do it or not, they were already doing it. Now they're admitting that they were. And now, when you have Coach Prime, who's been on all those levels, knew what was going on, understand what it takes, and it's all going to come back to players getting talent, and I think Coach Dancy is trying to sell them that. I'm almost going in circles. It almost come back again to getting that right player, getting that player who has produced, and also the AD. He's talked about, just putting it plain, very simple. You got to get money for that student athlete so they can live a student athlete's life just as they can do at other schools. And again, if you don't get that, and this, if you don't get those resources, then the truth is you can't expect to compete with anybody in the SWAC, out of the SWAC, with the first 2 ball games, even Division II. So resources is something that Coach Dancy talks about. Everybody else beginning to talk about it. They have the V Club now, which is putting more money into the program. At the same time, you know that when you put money into something, you have some expectations. So all that is working together. I'm hoping that at the end of the day, he can get what he needs to move the program. And here's the difference. Is that Jackson State is talking about a SWAC championship, right?
Right.
Always. But with Valley State, you mentioned earlier that Valley was picked on the bottom, and has been picked on the bottom every year for the past few years. And the teams and Coach Dancy, they don't get mad about that because they say until we do something, the writers are going to continue to do that. Yeah. So you don't get mad about it. But the bottom line is, again, once again, Coach, is getting those resources to get those players. And I've seen coaches come to Valley State, and many times on their way out, they begin to talk about resources, scholarships, Pell Grants. But that's a conversation that's up front right now, because it doesn't do any good not to talk about it and not ever get it. If you talk about it, it gets out there, and then folks will say, okay, now I know why we came up a touchdown short, or 2 touchdowns short. I know why, because the difference sometimes in getting it done is not getting it done is a step or 2. And that's the difference in some athletes. Some run faster, jump higher, bigger. Coach will tell you that the size is a talent these days here. If you don't believe it, look at the good teams. They'll beat you up front. Used to be the skilled players, running back, wide receivers, even quarterback. They say, well, they can win the ball game. But now they tell you flat out, it's in the trenches. And right now we have some depth that we didn't have, Curry, just last year. Now you can go 8, 9, 10 folks deep. Last year you couldn't do that. If you can't do that in a football game in temperature that's 85 and 90 degrees, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it'll be a long day. It'll be a long day. So yeah, we know all too well about needing to upgrade facilities and resources and things of that nature. And we are extremely thankful to have AD Ashley Robinson and Coach Prime, just with all that they've done to improve the facilities, a new practice field, just everything they've done. It's been well documented. I'm pretty sure and everyone who follows SWAC's HBCU football has seen what we've been able to do. And for you guys, again, you mentioned it. AD McClellan, he saw it firsthand. He's been working with AD Robinson for ages, it seems, and he was right there with AD Robinson as we were able to implement some of those things. So he has the blueprint, and I'm sure he's working on it. And man, it's going to be interesting to see a Valley State program with greater resources, because like I said, they give us everything that we can handle, and we expect the exact same thing this Saturday. Early kickoff again, 1 p.m. Stay hydrated all week. It will be hot. So make sure you're taking care of yourself in that regard. But we look forward to an excellent ball game.
Okay. Thank you. And congratulations on your show. You guys do a great job. Anytime you have a voice out there for HBCUs, it is absolutely great and it's absolutely necessary. I wish you great success with your show.
And we appreciate it. We appreciate all that you do for Mississippi Valley State, which means you're doing a lot for the SWAC as well, just calling the games and getting that information out there that people need to hear about the team. So we appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
You too.
And that'll do it for this episode of Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club. Thank you to all of our listeners. And again, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts and Spotify video users. Rate and review the show. And everyone, go follow Tiger Talk with the 1400 Club on Facebook and Tiger Talk 1400 on Instagram and Twitter. We're looking to do some big things with this platform to aid the athletics department. And it all starts with you downloading, subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show. And tell every Tiger that you know. We're on all podcast outlets, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify Video, YouTube, and so on. and we'll be posting each episode on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. As always, thanks for your support. Go Tigers. Hashtag I believe. Hashtag pack the vet. Hashtag the I love.